48-hour art check, round 45. So 45. That's quite a few of these.
I know. We're getting over the hill. My beard's more grizzly.
Yeah.
It's just it's getting there.
You know, if I don't grow a beard, but if I did, I've noticed in the last 6 to 12 months, I don't know when it started, it would be full on Ra's al Ghul. Like whenever I like have a couple days growth, I have these 2 gray stripes right here.
You should do it.
I should.
You should rock that business. It's a good thing.
Yeah. I've got about 4 gray hairs in my head, but I have, several inches of solid, like
just
gizmo
just
stripes.
Long.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. We jump in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Why don't... hey, we got people in the chat already. Hi, Pikey and Sasha. Do you want to start?
Yeah.
Okay. It's all yours.
All right. So you'll notice I have like no art to show, and that's because like we just wrapped up a major catalog, and so at my work, and so I literally got home like maybe like 30 minutes ago. So I will be catching up and doing my goals tonight.
Yeah. That's awesome. I was able to send every last thing to the printer except for business cards, which I'm still not sure if I'm doing or not, but I stayed up all night, took care of the baby a couple times, and did all the postcards, all the 11 by 17 posters, the banner, which I think is still up, looks like this, and all of everything that I'm bringing. I already ordered the stickers last week, and so that's like a huge weight off my mind. It's all sent to the printer.
It's epic. So it's just fun from this point on. You're just going to get cool print samples and all sorts of nice stuff. Yeah, so my challenge was just work is crazy busy. Being an art director is pretty time consuming at some points, and today was one of those days, but it's not a challenge I don't think I can overcome, but I still wish I had more to show today.
Yeah. Well, you're still going to get stuff done. I have just been going down rabbit holes. I ordered a kit on Amazon that's like little DC powered electronic motors, and I'm trying to like rig up a series of gears because I've been really frustrated that I haven't been able to find a scrolling sign. And so I have spent hours and hours and hours. I actually drove to a different city today. Went to like 5 different stores to try to find parts to make this thing. And I'm probably not even going to do it. So my main challenge is I've just rabbit hole distractions.
Nice. So my plan is to get a really good chunk of the rough pencils done tonight and tomorrow, so that the next time we talk, I'll be in a better position. And then also on the rabbit hole note, to stop looking at guitars online, because I have been on a guitar rabbit hole.
You have a guitar acquisition syndrome?
There's a specific one I want, and I just can't get it off my brain.
Yeah, that's a problem. My plan is just to kind of make final decisions on my booth. I've got like a wire thing. I've got signage coming, and so I just need to like decide on like how I want to do it. And I will probably continue to tinker with this electronic thing I'm trying to build. But I want something cool to kind of draw people in, so it's maybe just more booth prep and stuff like that.
It's rad.
So, yeah.
That's exciting that you're that far. Like, honestly, for convention, I think he will be in a good place.
I hope so. I mean, it is not next week, the week after, so it's pretty soon. So yeah, and I don't have any of the prints yet. They're like I'm waiting for them to come in the mail, including the stickers that I feel like I should have, so I got to reach out to that guy and see. But I don't know. Anyway, so what topic? I've got our list pulled up here. We've got
Any of those seem interesting to you?
we got to do one that will only last 9 minutes instead of an hour.
Yes.
High versus low art. I feel like that's a longer discussion. Horror vacui might be interesting. Do moderates exist anymore? Is kind of my response to everything that's going on. Everywhere that I look, it just seems like this weird polarization. So I don't know. I'm up for whatever.
Let's get into oh man, the moderate thing's so tempting, but I think that'll end up long too.
Yeah.
Let's do horror vacui.
Okay,
so,
horror vacui. So real quick,
yeah.
You introduced this to me as I was designing different things. If you look at my signage, there's not what you would call a lot of negative space there. And then you said, oh yeah, it's horror vacui. And I had never heard that term. And apparently it's like a whole thing, and you know all this stuff about it, and it seems really interesting. So that's kind of where that came from. But tell me about it.
So it's something I came across when I was reading art theory, and it was a really popular thing during there's this art critic who's notoriously kind of a dick.
What? That's so uncommon for art critics.
Yeah, and he was like the biggest proponent of like Pollock, and kind of like a big fan of like modernism and just paint just being paint. And like there was a lot of theory behind that I don't want to get heavily into. But anyhow, he used to kind of insult a lot of old-timey graphic design and stuff by calling it horror vacui. But even prior to that, it had just been a term because and it's a term in philosophy too. It just literally means I think it's like the fear of emptiness. And
okay,
so, yeah, so it literally is like that, but aesthetically, like if you feared emptiness, you'd just fill every possible space. So it was like super popular in Victorian art. So you'll see it with like, Victorian era illustrations where it's like every free space is filled with like filigree. And I mean, it literally even has fill in the term because it was like an ornamental way of just filling all the space. And then it became, like there's famous painters like Bosch who do these crazy paintings of like hell that are just these characters all filling the entire page. And it kind of can range all over the place. But it's a really cool aesthetic. Like Where's Waldo, those books kind of use it too, where it's just like a crowd scene, but it's just entirely filled.
And after you pointed that out, I started looking into it, and it really reminded me of, not from a color palette standpoint, but from a composition standpoint, Tokidoki, which I realize is probably a fairly major influence in my graphic design, not so much my illustration, but in the way that I compose things. I think I do it kind of in a kind of a Japanese European, I guess what would be called horror vacui style. I like negative space, and I will often use negative space, but I find that when I'm using negative space, it's an intentional decision to use negative space. It's not a natural state for me. So I will naturally try to fill everything up while giving it like depth and overlap and and all that stuff, and contrast in all the different things where you're going, like contrast in the type of line that you're using, contrast in the weight of the line, contrast in the sharpness of the curviness, in the size of things. But there's not a ton of negative space. So it's not like a lack of design principles. It's not like you just take Gestalt and throw it out the window. It's just very full, which normally if you're like in Design 101 classes, they just tell you that's bad. But I think there are ways, and I don't know if I'm doing it well, but I think there are ways to do it really well. because it's breaking one of the major rules of design, it's a slightly more advanced, I don't know, or older style or something.
Yeah, I mean, I that's the weird thing is I don't think it's bad, and I don't think it's bad design. I think it's funny because I'd have students who'd kind of play at it as a style, and I'd always try to kind of push them a little further to like really fill the space, just to balls out, fill the entire thing.
Yeah.
And I think I mean, to me aesthetically it hits home because, you know, like Tokidoki, for instance, like reminds me a lot of just like, you know, what my friends and I would do to our guitars and our skateboards, just covering an entire surface with stickers.
Yeah.
And I think it's a pretty common thing with like a graffiti style as well, where it's like you're taking a wall and you're just filling it with stuff. And so, but to me, it's funny because like to me, I don't think you use it all the time because like for instance, looking at your logo on the screen, and in my logo, it's like one of those logos that's kind of horror vacui, and it's not yours.
And a lot of that might just be your ability in typography compared to mine are very apparent.
No. I mean, I think because it's, you know, you have this nice logo, but it is utilizing a lot of negative space,
sure.
And so I think it's like one of those things of. But I do encourage people to try it as a style, and if you are going to try it, to really try it. Like try to fill an entire page, and just don't leave any space. It's really interesting what happens when you go all the way with it, because I do feel like it's discouraged by a lot of graphic designers, but I feel like if you really do it just fully, it can end up with some really cool aesthetics.
And you have to try to. I feel like you have to work a little bit harder with things like flow. You know, the image flow of how the user's eye is going to travel through the image is a little bit more difficult in that style because you don't have like clear leading lines. There's not a clear demarcation between positive and negative space that is a really obvious lead into something. And so I find that I have to do. I have to balance out where I want like my blues and where I want my, you know, like if there's a dominant feature of the particular spot, I need to make sure that that repeats in a pattern that I want to take it through. And so it's a little bit less obvious of a way of getting, because there are ways to do it where you fill the entire page, check, but it still looks really bad. Because things don't overlap correctly, or there's no depth, or you haven't thought through like the flow of the image, and so it actually becomes. It takes me way longer, even if I've already like this sign that I keep bringing up. Everything I had already drawn, you know, all of those elements were already created, but I still had to like lay them out and size them and place them, and it took a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it should. I mean, it's an interesting thing, and I do. I feel like because of design school and because people are always like fond of leaving a lot of negative space, which is a good practice. It's a good practice to have like a really strong like figure foreground flip.
Yeah.
You know, to have like just a really nice balance and a nice composition. Maybe follow the rule of thirds. You know, so you have like 2/3 of your composition occupied by a specific amount of space, you know, but it is like one of those things that I was surprised at how many students that I'd have who were kind of fearful of just being balls out about it and just filling up an entire space.
Yeah.
And I really do think like it can be a really cool thing. And I think the further you get into it, especially if it's like an illustration or something, the cooler it can be. So it's definitely fun to look at and research. It's also a fun little side factoid about it. It's a default for a lot of people who suffer from schizophrenia, like just naturally draw that way. And if you're ever bored one day, just go down that rabbit hole and look at schizophrenic horror vacui art. It's amazing. It's like some of it is sincerely like just fascinating and weird and amazing and kind of I don't know, could bring a whole aesthetic. S. Clay Wilson, Art Chrome, like a lot of those guys kind of played at that style, and it's a cool game to play. All right.
Yeah. But it is I would agree with you, and I would say if you do it, it's one of those things like I played football in high school. I was on the team and I got to practice every day. Didn't necessarily get on the field much, but one of the things that the coach would say often is you need to be playing at the same speed as everybody else, and so he would call out like, all right, we're gonna do this at half speed. Okay, we're gonna go full speed. That type of thing, because if somebody is doing, if somebody is doing 100%, somebody else is doing 70%, 70% is going to get hurt, right? And,
Yep.
and I would say the same thing with this style. If you do this style, you can't half do this style. You have to fully commit and knowingly do it, because otherwise it will just look really crowded and partially done.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the best designers know the rules, learn the rules, know how to follow the rules, and then when they break the rules, they're doing it with so much intention. Like, perfect example is Chip Kidd.
Yeah.
He did this book called The Cheese Monkeys. That's his own book. He wrote it, but he also designed it, and he's a book designer who's designed books for years, and decided to take all the the inside page like legals and stuff that you see like at the intro of every book, and just kind of have it go half off the page, and then you turn the page and the other half continues on that side. But he can kind of get away with it because he's Chip Kidd and he knows what he's doing.
Right.
So it's like, there are ways to kind of break the rules, and but I think part of it's also just be aware of the rule and really break it. Because there's a point where you break the rules so much that they kind of follow a new rule, which is kind of rad. So, yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Okay. So if you want to check out Josh's stuff, you can go to quarterlystories.com. You're going to check out my stuff, you can go to corykerr.com. I don't have a lot of horror vacui up, but when I organize my things, actually my Instagram right now, if you go to my Instagram, I did one of those things where I split everything up into a grid that goes like 6 squares rather than just one post. So I did like 6 posts that all bleed together, and it kind of works that way. But yeah, go check that stuff out. And if you haven't read Josh's book yet, catch up and go read it. It's good. So we will catch you guys all in a couple days. And thanks for being in the chat, Sasha and Pikey. You guys are awesome. We'll catch you later.
Bye.